In this video, we will discuss some important calculations in Tableau that are used very often. Specifically, we'll cover four types of calculations. The first one is a quick table calculation. Then we'll look at logical calculations. Logical calculations can help us identify things like high and low indicators. Then we will look at some numerical calculations, which essentially involve creating a new variable. And then finally, we'll look at some date calculations, and an application of a date calculation would be to find, for example, the difference between two dates. So for this workbook, we'll be using our Global Superstore Tableau Excel file. So you should import that in Tableau and have it ready. We'll be in the orders worksheet. So for the first one, we want to see how to do a quick table calculation. And let's bring our quantity to we're going to bring our date to columns. And then we want to bring our sales, or let's bring our profits to rows. And let's convert this into a continuous date. So here we get our profits and the way they've been evolving over time from 2011 to 2015. Now for quick table calculations, we can just go on this drop down menu and then access the table calculations menu from here. And if you want to see the running total of our profits, instead of looking at profits every month, we can click on a running total. And here we see that our profits have been aggregatively increasing, and this is our total profits right from the beginning of a period to the end of the period. But let's say we want to have this graph along with. So what I can do is we want to have our profits, we bring it here. So we essentially create two profit charts, and they are one on top of the other because we have synchronized axes, we have the same variable here. But now suppose here we want to have the second measure give our running total. So we can go over here and then do a quick table calculation and click on running total. So now we have a measure as our profits each year, and then we also have a running total of our profits. However, it is a little odd because we have non-synchronized axes. If we wanted to synchronize our axes, we could right click here and then click on synchronize axes. So now we get a measure of profits every year as well as our running total, but now the scale of this gets dwarfed by our running total of our profits. So this is an example where perhaps synchronizing axes do not make as much sense, because then we miss out on all the variation in our just regular profits. So I'm gonna uncheck and then uncheck the synchronized axis option here. And this is a case where if we wanted to, we could instead of a dual axis, like a dual pane chart for running total. So we can remove the second measure. We are back to our running total, and we introduce profit again in the window, but now instead of moving it here, which was a dual panel, we could either bring it below, or we could kind of bring it into the row shelf, and then we have a replication of the same graph. Now in this case, I can go here and then we can click on a quick table calculation and do a running total. And now we see our variation in profit every period, and then also our running total. And because our aggregation is monthly data, maybe it makes more sense to see how our profits have been changing on a month-to-month basis. In that case, we can quickly go to our shelf and then edit this to call it a percentage change. So we'll call it a percentage difference. And now we see how our profits have been changing every month. And we do see some seasonality here. We have seen peak in the summer months with a regular periodicity. But this is an interesting way to see how our profits have been changing from the previous period, and then this tracks our trend in our profits over time. Now suppose we wanted to save this measure and use it at a later time. Right now this measure is been created in the row shell, so it is like an ad hoc table calculation. It does not appear in the view. But suppose you wanted to save this measure and use it in a different worksheet. We could drag this and bring it to the measures pane, and if we leave it here, then this also appears as a calculation, and we can call it percent difference of profits. So this way, this measure can be reused in a different worksheet if we so desired. At a new worksheet, then we see that we still have this in the view. Whereas if we had only left it as a ad hoc table calculation in the shelf, we would not have been able to access this measure in a different worksheet.